What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another stream here on Ranger Central. And we got somewhat breaking news, but also not so breaking because of the fact that I'm going live later from when this happened. But a big trade happened in the NHL, so I figured I would talk about it, go live, all that stuff, as the Tampa Bay Lightning have acquired Yanni Gourde, Oliver Bjorkstrand, and a fifth-round pick in exchange for two first-round picks, a second-round pick, Mikey Anisima, and then a third team is getting involved, the Detroit Red Wings, to help retain on Gourde's salary. And I believe it is a fourth round pick going the other way there to Detroit. But wow, what a huge trade in the NHL. I was hoping that this trade would wait for Friday because of the fact that obviously is the trade deadline on Friday. And I want to actually have significant news to talk about there while I am live prior to going on with Big Apple Hockey. As yes, I will be doing two different live streams. Both will be on this channel, so you don't have to worry about that. At first, I will be live here from around 8:45 to 9 a.m. Around there, I will start, and then that will run until around 12 o'clock noon. And then I will be joining Big Apple Hockey, going live from there. And then it will also be on my channel, so you guys could tune into either one of our streams. Either way, the support is greatly appreciated. And then for the audio listeners, give a 5-star rating and a review. This will probably go up to the audio version. I'm not, maybe not, just because it's a NHL stream and it's not really a stream where we're talking about anything going on specifically with the Rangers. But yeah, this is a huge move, and I will have Matt joining me, which is why I have the second box empty for right now. But this is a huge trade. I thought that this was going to have to wait for Friday because I thought for the cap to work, that would be the only way. But it looks like this deal is going to work either way right now, considering the fact that Easymont's going out the other way. I'm assuming that Tampa Bay is going to send down their third goalie, which will also help open up some cap. I thought Perbix would have to go in this deal to make it work, but it does make sense that with Bjorkstrand getting his salary retained, or not Bjorkstrand, Gourde getting his salary retained, and Bjorkstrand being at a relatively friendly deal, I guess that it makes sense that they are able to fit it. But I respect Tampa Bay for doing this. And this is what I wanted the Rangers to do last year. I wanted them to go in and make a big swing and get this aggressive. Tampa Bay has two Stanley Cups, actually three in my lifetime, two though relatively recently, and they're still not afraid to go all in and make the big moves. You've seen them do it time in and time again, and everyone questions them when they do it, like getting Brandon Hagel for two first-round picks. Well, what do you know? Look at how that has worked out. Like when they acquired Jake Gensel, but it resulted in them leaving Steven Stamkos behind and moving on from him. Everyone questioned them. Well, look at how much that has worked out for Tampa Bay, and look at how it's working out for Nashville, who ended up signing Steven Stamkos. Everyone questioned them when they acquired Barclay Goodrow for a first round pick and Blake Coleman. Look at what happened when they did. And I'm not saying those guys were the reason they won the Stanley Cup, but they were, part of it, as they were good complementary pieces, of course, to Yanni Gourde, who is coming back. And obviously, they know the fit works there in Tampa Bay. So there's nothing to worry about in that regard. And he's could play up and down the lineup. If the Rangers were in a position to where they should be getting rentals, Yanni Gourde would have been one of, if not my top target for them to acquire, because I've wanted this guy for quite a bit now. And yeah, he ends up getting dealt there when there was question. And now he's making just under 1.3 million against Tampa Bay's cap, by the way. And it is hilarious considering the fact that someone tweeted this, that he's like better than the entire Rangers roster and is making that much, which is crazy to think about. And then Oliver Bjorkstrand's at a very friendly $5.4 million deal, and he has an extra year after this, which he should slot in on their second line. And this, all of a sudden, in my opinion, makes Tampa Bay go from being a team that I thought was a second round team, maybe could get into the Eastern Conference type team, as Matt's joining, and I'll let you jump in a second here. But this trade, in my opinion, took Tampa Bay from being a second round ceiling team to now I think they have the tools to go the distance in the Eastern Conference, especially with how wide open it is. Their biggest hurdle is going to be Florida, but with this trade, this puts them in a way better spot to match up against them. I think they have questions on their blue line still, but when you look at their top nine, which consists of Gensel, Point, Kucherov as that first line, their second line, Hagel, Sorelli, Bjorkstrand now, and that third line, Paul, Gourde, and then you could put in whoever, whether it's Gergensons, uh, and Glendening, whoever you want to put in on that third line, it will work. And maybe they acquire another third line forward. And yeah, I know the Energy No trade was terrible for them, but at the same time, you respect them for being aggressive because more times than not, it has worked for them. But Matt, I'll let you jump in with your thoughts on the trade, and of course, how you would grade this for Tampa Bay, especially just because I'm more so talking about their side of it.
Yeah, no, I think my overall opinion is solid trade for both sides. I think from Seattle's point of view, I think they're a couple years away from really competing and being a real playoff team. I know the Western Conference isn't the greatest. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's much better right now than the Eastern Conference. I think the Eastern Conference lacks a lot of top teams, but Seattle's still a couple years away. You thought they would, build off that 2023 run to the second round, but just really hasn't come about for them. But yeah, it's smart for them to, trade away Gourde, who's going to be a UFA next year. Bjorkstrand still has another year left on his contract, but to get 2 first-round picks, I thought it's a really good return, and then especially you get the second round pick from Toronto also, and then you get Mikey Eyssimont, who's a decent third line winger for them. So overall, I thought Seattle did really good for themselves, and then yeah, you mentioned with Tampa, you gotta credit Julian Breezeball for being aggressive once again, because he really looked at this Eastern Conference, and like I just mentioned, the East is not really strong. I mean, probably you look at the 2, 3 teams, I'd say that you'd say, like, they have a solid chance at winning a cup. Toronto, Florida, Washington. Because right now with the Devils, Jack Hughes, I think Larry Brooks just put out, like about half an hour ago, that the Jack Hughes injury looks a lot worse than it initially was looking like. So, looks like he's gonna be out, he's gonna need surgery. So, and at that point with Jack Hughes out and the Devils already free falling, they've got no shot and they're in danger of missing the playoffs. Carolina, again, they have a solid team, but if they trade away Miko Rantanen and now they're getting less assets back than what they originally traded for him for, not a good look. I don't see them as a top cup contender, and we've seen over the past couple years that they keep coming up short in second round conference final. They just can't get over the hump. And then Washington, yeah, good season, but we start to see some cracks in their game. Do they have enough? We don't know. Toronto, they're Toronto once again. They'll get into the playoffs, sure, but what are they going to do? Are their top players going to show up? We don't know. And then obviously, right now, the Panthers for me are the top team right now in the Eastern Conference, and I think that actually, I would say before the trade, they would be my top team to come out of the East. I think Tampa catches up to them a little bit, but if Florida still has some cap space to make another big move, and if they go out and they were to acquire Miko Rantanen, which I don't think they will, but let's just say in a hypothetical world they will do. I think at that point Florida would be no doubt the team to come out of the East. But like I said, Breezeball, you got to give him credit because he saw a weak Eastern Conference and he saw, listen, we're a couple pieces away. Let me make this trade. Obviously, bring back Yanni Gourde, a guy that was vital for that third line on their back-to-back cup winning teams, and you bring in a guy on Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's a solid goal scoring middle six winger. And like you mentioned, you look at those two guys now put into the Tampa Bay lineup, you probably have one of the best first lines in the NHL with Gensel, Point, and Kucherov, a really solid overall second line with Hagel, Sorelli, Bjorkstrand, and then a solid third line with Nick Paul, Yanni Gourde, and then whoever, like you said, you plug into that third line right wing. So overall, I think a really solid trade for both sides.
Yeah, I was gonna mention actually. Speaking of Toronto, I was gonna say they're the biggest losers of this deal because this package would have made so much sense for them, and they probably would have had, you know, the chips to do it because they could have offered. And I saw some Toronto fans saying that, oh, they couldn't have matched this offer, this and that. I actually disagree. I think if they offered 2 first round picks and offered one of their prospects like Fraser Minton or Easton Cowan, and then gave up again similar draft capital, they could have easily facilitated this deal themselves. So I actually disagree with the people that are saying, well, Toronto couldn't have done this. And I think if anything, they should have pushed the chips in, especially now that Tampa's getting these guys. But maybe that just means Toronto has a bigger move. Maybe they're a team that's involved on Miko Rantanen, which we've heard. And, that would help, of course, change the narrative there a bit. But this is why, looking at this, this is why we were so mad last year and why I'm still going to be mad because you look at the difference in Breezewell, who is acknowledging that the East is garbage, is acknowledging we have a legit shot here. Florida's the hurdle that we got to get over. But we feel that, you know what? We're going to get aggressive. We're going to try to match up against them. If it doesn't work out, at least we gave an effort. This is what the Rangers should have been doing last year because the East was more wide open than it is this year because I think Toronto is slightly better than they were last year. I think Washington's obviously more of a threat than they were last year. And then I think Carolina is slightly better than they were last year. But either way, this is why you give credit to them that they acknowledge the situation. They acknowledge we can make ourselves the second best team in the East, maybe even the best. We just, again, we could maybe go against Florida because we do have the better goaltender. We do have, a top nine that could potentially go up against theirs. And, the D core, I would definitely give the edge to Florida there. I think Florida, that's where they excel at. But you know what? We've won a Stanley Cup, 2 Stanley Cups. We have some pieces here that we feel can really go against these guys. And, again, you give credit to them for that one. So, and they're probably not done because the fact that they got a third team involved to retain on Yanni Gourde tells me they're going to be in the market, which they should for a defenseman because Perbix is making 1.1 million to sit in the press box. If they decide to move him, and then if they get clear Connor Sheary's contract, which he's buried currently down in the AHL, but 800K of that is still accounting to the cap. If they could turn that into a good defenseman come the trade deadline, all of a sudden this team is really in a good spot to where you look at them and say, all right, maybe there's actually a legit conversation that they could beat Florida here, but they just leapfrog Toronto, in my opinion. And I think that, again, like we mentioned before, there's a really good chance that they could match up well against Florida. And yeah, I mean, we'll see. I just want to read some comments here. You have to give Yzerman credit for building the Lightning. All their core players were picks under Yzerman's administration. Yeah, but you also give Breezewell the credit for being able to, and this is where the difference is between why we don't give Chris Drury credit and why Breezewell's getting credit despite inheriting the core. He took the core and got the right surrounding pieces and took it to the next level. Drury was handed the core and has just ran it into the ground and has done anything but surround those guys or retool with those guys getting the right pieces. That's the difference there with that.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you added, you talk about the fact that he took the core, put it over the top, won back-to-back cups, went to 3 straight Stanley Cup Finals in a row, lost a hard 6-game series to that Colorado Avalanche team, and the fact that he was able to retool this roster, he had to make some tough decisions. He got rid of Ryan McDonough, brought him back, but still got rid of him. Got rid of a fan favorite franchise legend, a guy who's going to get his number retired, a first ballot Hall of Famer, Steven Stamkos, when probably a lot of people initially looked at that, say, they're kind of disrespecting Stamkos. How could you treat a franchise legend like that? But we've seen what he's done in Nashville this year. He signed that big time contract, and the drop off has been insane from Steven Stamkos. So again, major credit to Julian Breezeball on recognizing the faults of that team and saying, okay, now is the right time to retool. And even then, like when he retooled this roster, they were still competitive. They were still making the playoffs every year. Sure, they got eliminated in the first round a couple times. They got eliminated in the second round a couple times, but they were still a very competitive team while retooling this roster. And then also, I got to give credit again to Breezeball because you date back a couple years ago to 2023, he took a big swing on Tanner Jeannot, and Jeannot at that point was a decent middle six guy for Nashville at that point. But you could have looked at him and said, okay, maybe if you elevate him into a better team surrounded by better players, he could take his game up to the next level. And Tampa gave Nashville a major haul. I mean, I have the trade pulled up here, but Cal Foote, a 2023 third round pick, 2023 fourth round pick, 2023 fifth round pick, a 2024 second round pick, and a 2025 first round pick. They gave up a haul, and that trade failed miserably because Tanner Jeannot did not work at all in Tampa Bay. And Breezeball took a huge loss because then he traded him the next, or not the year after in the offseason, and he only got back a fourth and a second round pick. So he could have easily been scared off and say, I already tried one big trade. It didn't work. Do I really want to try another? But he said, no, listen, I trust in myself. I believe in the players we're bringing in. Again, it's a big haul to giving up, especially with 2 first-round picks. But, like I said, you got to give credit to Breezebot on going in and just showing balls of steel because Chris Drury, we go back a year ago to this point, and the Rangers were first in the league, one of the better teams in the league, and they went into the trade deadline, and their grand solution was Jack Roslovic, Alex Wenberg, and Chad Ruedel. And we all know how that worked out.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I didn't even mention. It's like they've been aggressive. It has worked. It has failed, and it doesn't scare them when they fail. It doesn't, and that's the big difference between a good GM and a GM that's not as good. It's the That's the difference there. And I just want to address some more comments here. Will this move virtually doom the Rangers' chances? I mean, the Rangers' chances weren't great to begin with because realistically, sure, they could maybe sneak around if they play Carolina just because of the fact that they somehow always beat Carolina. It just does not matter the case. But I still don't think they are getting to the conference finals. I think that I think Washington still beats them, even though we call them PDO merchants, which they are, and we call them frauds. I mean, we've seen the Rangers look like frauds before, and they still make the conference finals. I think that Washington still would beat them, and I still would probably give it to Carolina either way if they match up in round one against them, even though the Rangers still just find a way to beat them. But I'm just saying hypothetically, if it goes the same way that it usually does, they were probably at most winning a round anyway, to where I don't think this affects them in any way. If they feel what they have is good enough to get to the conference finals, that's a scary thought because this team is far from good enough to be a conference finals team. If they happen to get there, cool. But I hope that they look at it in the way that the Mets just did this past offseason. Like, okay, we got to the final four, but we need to take this team still to another level. So that's what I hope for. But knowing Chris Drury, if they make the final four, he's going to just re sign Calvin DeHaan to a 7-year deal.
With a no movement clause.
Yeah. Kreider might be getting traded. Yes, and that would be good. And that's why I also point to the people that are like, well, they can't move Chris Kreider. Tampa Bay just let go of Stamkos. And look at how much that has opened their window after moving Steven Stamkos. Now, all of a sudden, I didn't think of Tampa Bay as a huge threat. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I didn't think of them as a huge threat before this trade. Now I look at them and say they could be the team from the East, but I still would think personally they have to make one more move for their blue line. And I think that if they could get a cheap bottom six player, that would help too. But they're in a really good spot.
This whole thing, this narrative that you can't trade Chris Kreider it's ridiculous. It really is. Listen, I get it. We all get attached to players. We do. There's players that I love and I think would suck to lose. For example, we're Mets fans. It sucked to lose Jacob deGrom. It did, but again, you have to look at context. That contract that the Texas Rangers gave him did not make sense. And the Mets were proven right ultimately because Jacob deGrom went out and had Tommy John surgery. You have to look at, you can't just go off emotional decisions and say, oh, this guy has played his whole career here and look what he's done for the team. You can't get rid of him. You can't do that. Listen, what the Rangers should have done last year was they should have traded Kreider in the offseason last year because the guy had just came off a 39-goal season. You could have got really good value for him last offseason. And I've talked about this many times before. It's all about getting rid of guys at the right time. And so far, and what the Rangers have shown, especially over this specific core, is they wait too long to get a good return on players, and then it dampens the return. I do wonder what Chris Kreider's return will be, just because again with the back issue, and then after this year he'll still have 2 years at around $6.5 million. I know the cap's going up, but are the Rangers good? They might have to retain salary for the last 2 years. I'm not too sure, and I know Vince had that article, and he talked about that. If a Kreider deal is going to happen, and it probably most likely will happen, it's going to be in the offseason. So I do wonder, but the whole narrative, like I was just saying, about you can't trade Chris Kreider because of what he just done for the team it's flat out ridiculous. Listen, I like Kreider. I like him as a player. I appreciate everything he's done for them, for this franchise. But let's look at the fact it took him till his ninth season to score 30 goals or more in a season. Ninth full season. Like we can't be holding on to this notion that we can't trade him. It's ridiculous. If you get a good package for him and it makes sense, and you can open up $6.5 million on your cap space next year, then yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, you do it. Like we said before, this franchise bought out Henrik Lundqvist, the best goaltender in franchise history. So if you're telling me that they can't move on from Chris Kreider, I'm sorry, but you're just being emotional to one singular player and not looking at the big fact that him leaving is going to help the team in the long run. And that's what it's all about. Listen, the Mets just let go of Jose Iglesias, okay? Like he was so vital to that team, to that Met team last year, and they decided to let him go. And good luck to him in San Diego. But yeah, it's all about doing what's right for the team and not what's right for an individual player.
Yeah, that and I want to pull this comment up because I'm not saying that you think that I'm saying this, Dirk, but I'm just saying that Steven Stamkos is objectively a better player than Chris Kreider as well. It's not a debate. It's not an argument. Sure, Chris Kreider might be leading the stats for this franchise, but that's because of longevity. Steven Stamkos is objectively a way better player, and they still moved him. They still let him go. So I'm tired of hearing about how they have to keep him because he's got to come here to break the records. It's the same argument that we had with Pete Alonso this offseason that you don't extend the guy long term just because he could break some records here. I'm sorry, that's just not what you do. Trey
Yeah.
Kreider, who ends up on the graphic. I gotta get new graphics. I actually just updated as thanks to your comment that made me remember that I had to update the banner, which I just did for the channel. So
Oh, for the
uh
Mets thing.
the no, the channel banner for the Rangers one.
Oh, for the Rangers. Oh,
I
okay.
just updated it because it had it had Lindgren in it,
Uh-huh.
and it also I think had Kreider in it. So I wanted the and Panarin. I wanted to update it because I know that those guys are most like. I mean, Kreider's probably gone, and then Panarin could be this offseason. If not, he's probably gone the next offseason. So I just
And
decided to update it.
and just to add on to that comment, like Steven Stamkos, when he retires, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Chris Kreider, while like I said, good player, nowhere near the Hall of Fame. Nowhere near. Steven Stamkos is also captained Tampa Bay Lightning to two Stanley Cups. Chris Kreider, again, not entirely his fault because it's not always down to one player on whether you win a cup or not. Look at Henrik Lundqvist, for example, didn't win a cup, but still Hall of Famer, legendary goalie in NHL history. And Stamkos is going to get his number retired by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And look, people might not like this opinion, but I'm a believer in the fact that Chris Kreider should not get his number retired by the Rangers. Sorry, it's my opinion. I don't believe he's done enough in order to get his number retired. That's just me. And I've always maintained the fact that if last year they had won a cup, and you factor in his Game 6 performance versus Carolina, at that point I would have said sure, but no Stanley Cup. And when you just plainly look at the numbers, to me, Chris Kreider should not have his number retired in MSG. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree with that entirely. You know that I do. And I mean, yeah, this Wayne Gretzky's been traded. Like we've said it all. Like again, I'm just tired of hearing about people caring about the individual performances. It's the same thing with JT Miller, how everyone's like, well, Evan, apologize to the fact that you didn't want JT Miller. Great. Individually, he's performing, but I don't care if this team does not go in the direction they need to, which is doing what they could to win with him, then I don't care how good he does as a Ranger. I don't. I'm sorry. I really do not care. What matters more is getting this team in the best position to win. So if they don't do that, then what was the point of the trade? That's been the argument the entire time. I mean, we both said it. Like, cool, he could perform at an elite 1C level his first 2 to 3 seasons, maybe even 4 here. What does it matter if the Rangers are a tweener team each year that he's here? What does it matter? Because then you traded futures for nothing and you went in this direction of trying to still contend for nothing.
No, exactly. Listen, my problem and your problem with the JT Miller trade was never that we never questioned his talent. JT Miller is an incredible player. He's a very good player. But again, you have to look at context of where this roster was and where this franchise is currently. They are not anywhere near winning a Stanley Cup, and that's just how it is. Listen, they might make the playoffs this year, but let's all be honest with ourselves. They're not going far this year. They maybe might win a round, maybe at best. They're not going past the second round. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But the way I look at this roster and compare it to other rosters, even though the Eastern Conference is not good, I don't see this roster making any major noise in the playoffs. And it's the same thing that I had with it was the same problem that I had with the Igor extension. Listen, I like Igor as a player. He had a fantastic season a couple years ago where he put up Vezina winning numbers, Hasek winning numbers, and he won the Vezina trophy. But looking at how they played against Florida last year and looking at the amount of money that they simply have to designate to him and the amount of years to designate to him, it made no sense because, again, sure, Sergei Bobrovsky is the first goaltender in NHL history to win a Stanley Cup as a goaltender with a 10 million AAV. But again, that's an outlier because look at the other goaltenders around the league that have won cups. Matt Murray, Antti Niemi, Corey Crawford, Darcy Kemper, Aiden Hill. You don't need to overpay a goaltender that amount of money. It's all about the team that you put in front of them. Listen, and I get it. It was a short competition, but look at it. Look at all the when we were talking about the four nations, right? When we were previewing it, everyone's big problem with Canada was their goaltending. Can you win with Jordan Binnington in net? They did. And listen, Jordan Binnington played a fantastic final. I'm going to give him credit. But why did Canada win? Because look at the talent in front of their goaltending. Look at the center core. Look at the wingers. Look at the defensive core. And I get it; it's best on best. No NHL team is going to look like that. But again, you have to put the talent in front of the goaltender. And listen, I'm not saying that you can just put any goaltender in and you'll win a cup. Because at the end of the day, you do need a solid goaltender. But it's all about your goaltender getting hot at the right time and not just overpaying for one just because he puts up really good numbers in the regular season.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything to add on to that. I mean, I've been shy on that point too. Kreider's one of my favorite players of all time, but it's time to move on. It's the same thing that I said when when I wanted them to move Kakko last year and push the chips in to go get Gensel or to go get Vetrano and Henrique. I have a jersey. I have a Kaapo Kakko jersey. I have a Chris Kreider jersey. I don't care. I care more about the name on the front than the name on the back. I do not care. And I'm sorry, like, you could feel upset about a player moving on and be thankful for what they've done, but at the same time, like, there's a point where, all right, you got to turn the page. Like, it gets to a point where you have to turn the page. And that's just the reality of the situation. That goes back to our point, though, with where it's hurt the Rangers in the past because they just refused to move on from guys at the right time. Kreider, we screamed all offseason to move him. Ryan Lindgren, we screamed to move him last year at the draft when they probably could have got a first round pick for him because of the fact that he was still an RFA, and GMs cream over the fact that they see a 25, 26-year-old left shot defenseman that plays a physical game. And even though he was coming off a down year, you probably still kind of got first because Alexander Romanov got a first round pick at the draft. We said it with Kaka last year at the deadline. Move him before his value plummets. That's why I'm sitting here and really questioning and think like again, I'm not someone that bangs the drum. I know that there's two sides usually where people either despise Keandre Miller or they think he's like the best thing since sliced bread. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think he is a good defenseman. I think you could win with him ideally on a third pair, maybe on a second pair, but he's like he has to be his right partner needs to be better than him to win with him on a second pair. But I'm questioning if the Rangers should move him because it's getting to a point where every single time they wait around to move these guys, they're either stuck with a bad contract, like they might be with Lafreniere right now, like with Zibanejad, like with Kreider when they, just even before, like when they were still rebuilding by not moving him then, when they could have got Jason Robertson or when they could have got a haul for him at the deadline that year from the Blues, like Jordan Kyrou. I'm sitting here questioning if they should move Miller because it gets to a point where we're either in the situation where we're stuck with a bad contract or these guys' values plummet and we get peanuts in return.
Yeah, and we just got the news that Jack Hughes underwent shoulder surgery. He's going on LTIR, so
And we'll be back for training camp as Pagnota just worded it. So
for the Devils, it's not looking good at all right now.
Nico just tweeted, I'm worried for Frank.
Yeah, Frank's about to have a major meltdown. He's gone forever.
Well, that puts the Rangers in a spot where they realistically could get in third place, which is insane to say. Because unless Columbus gets there, I don't know, but it's either going to be the Rangers or Columbus now at this point. Well, yeah, the Devils might sell now. They probably should. Realistically.
I wonder what, looking at their contracts, what they have to sell.
I mean, now with Hughes on LTIR too, I mean, it does all. The thing is, honestly, with them, it's either I think they are in a spot where, all right, if we don't land Rantanen, we should just sell. I think that's how they should go about their deadline approach.
I mean, to be honest, looking at their guys, their pending UFAs, like they don't. I mean, Tatar, Bastion, Lazar, Dowling, and Kovacevic. I think for Kovacevic, I think you get a decent return. So if they're trading anybody, I think that's a guy who you look at and say, okay, I could probably get a solid return for Kovacevic. But yeah, Tatar, Bastion, Lazar, and Dowling, I don't think you're going to get much in terms of a return there. So and they're in a tough spot right now.
Yeah. Yeah, they're screwed, but not my problem.
Nope.
Thankfully.
Well, we have a bigger problem, so we can't really complain.
True. You predict we'll get third. I mean, they could get third at this point because who the hell is even in question right now? Like Columbus. It's really about it.
Yeah,
New Jersey's probably gonna miss.
Yeah, I gotta wonder now if they try to, and overall they shouldn't because the guy has dealt with a freaking knee injury last year, but I wonder if they rush back Fox now, or at least because they said they were gonna push him back to at least as late in the season as possible. I wonder do now like with the Devils already being just terrible right now, and then again now he was going on LTIR. I wonder now if Jury sees the opportunity and see, okay, maybe if I get Fox a little bit back earlier, maybe we could catch and get third place. But I wouldn't do it personally.
Well, if Drury is smart, which if he is, then he would sit Fox for the rest of the year. I still think he should, because you should you should be able to get third place or make the playoffs comfortably either way right now. Like, I know Fox is a big piece, but you should still be able to make the playoffs either way now with this Hughes injury, because the Devils are, they're a train wreck. But um and then weaponize the cap space to both, again, like we've said the entire time, get picks and also do buy on guys that have term. Like, if Drury wants to get aggressive this year, make a swing for Tuck. Make a swing for McLeod, or just guys that have term or their RFAs after this year.
Would have been so nice last year, but hey, it's okay, I guess.
I'm tempted now to just bet the house though on the Rangers and Blue Jackets making the playoffs, because they have plus odds.
Ken, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I think Fox blows. See, here's the thing on Fox, right? And we've talked about this before in our group chat. There's so much, like the whole Adam Fox conversation. It's either all the way to one side that he's the best defenseman in the world, or it's all the way on the other side to where he just sucks and the Rangers need to trade him. Like, both cases are not true. The truth always lies somewhere in the middle. And I have this opinion with Fox, right, where I think Adam Fox is a really good defenseman. I think he's been hurt the last couple of years, that the fact that he's had to play with a guy like Ryan Lindgren who brings down his ability. But and I do think, he relatively, when you look at Fox and compare him to all the other defensemen in the league, I think he's an all-star caliber defenseman. However, looking at the recent playoff performances, and yes, people can say he was hurt, but looking at the Four Nations performance that he had, I think we kind of need to step back a little bit and just, for now, take out Adam Fox out of the elite level defenseman. And this is not me saying he sucks. This is me saying that he's still a really good defenseman. However, when you look at the top two defensemen, in my opinion, right now in the NHL, which is Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes, their number one ability is skating, and their ability to, to move the puck and be decisive and be elusive. Adam Fox's skating is nowhere near the level of those two guys. And that's what, for me, puts him down a level from those two guys. Now, listen, could he go out there and improve his skating in the offseason or at any time? Sure, he could. But he's had opportunities to do this over the last couple years, and he hasn't done that. And listen, I get it. He back a couple years ago, he won a Norris. But if we're going to be all honest with each other, like, Adam Fox hasn't been that same Norris level caliber defenseman since, I would say, last season when he got put on LTIR. He hasn't been that same guy. And we can all sit here and be honest with each other, because he hasn't. Like, truly, realistically, when was the last time we've seen Adam Fox take over a game? And, we watch him and say, Jesus Christ, Adam Fox is all over the ice. Breakouts, scoring chances, huge defensive plays, big kills on, big time plays on the penalty kill, moving the puck on the power play, walking the line. When was the last time we've seen that? We really haven't. Like I said, the last time we saw that was back last year in the beginning of the season before we got put on LTIR. And for me, it's like I said, truth is in the middle. For me, Adam Fox is a really good all-star level defenseman. But for me, until he improves his skating and until he gets a really good defenseman next to him, I don't think we can call him elite. And like I said, could he get back to that level? Sure, but we have to wait and see about that.
Yeah. It's pretty much what we've talked about the entire time with him. It's just that people can't accept that there's a middle, but that's modern day society for you, where there's no middle ground with anything. Let's see. Would you guys entertain a deal where the Rangers get Rantanen for Panarin straight up?
Yeah, that's never gonna happen. So
No, it's like that wouldn't happen, and I wouldn't entertain it, because I think I really I've said it now for the past few weeks. I want them to trade Panarin, but I want it to be to get depth because I also want them to conserve their cap space. And we're seeing the gimmick again that the Rangers are going to make a big swing this offseason, which I have to see it to believe it. I still want them to conserve their cap space for that 2026 summer. They have to. I mean, the amount of big names that could hit the market, and again, I've said it before, it's not a guarantee. All of these guys hit the market, but there's a very good chance that the majority do, or at least a good amount. You have Connor McDavid, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Kirill Kaprizov, Adrian Kempe, Alex Tuck, who all are pending UFAs that offseason. Again, will they all hit the open market? We don't know. But if the Rangers could land any of those guys, I'm taking any of those guys in a heartbeat over keeping Panarin around. Not even a question.
I mean, just looking at it on Spotrac right now, McDavid hitting free agency at 29 years old. I mean, for me, listen, there is a chance that he lands back in Edmonton, but I think for me, he's going to test the market because I think he would be dumb not to test the market because teams will be throwing crazy amount of money at him. If the Rangers could land him, I mean, listen, I was excited seeing Juan Soto sign with the Mets, but I mean, if Connor McDavid signs with the Rangers, I mean, that's like 1A, 1B in terms of excitement level for free agents. And that's the 1C that the Rangers would have not had in a while. I mean, really since Messier, this team hasn't had a true number one dominant elite level 1C. And I mean, and not even just McDavid, but if like they were able to bring in Jack Eichel, which wish they did back in 2021 when they should have traded for him, but again, Rangers miss out on a big talent at the right time. But hey, it's okay, I guess, because we made 2 conference finals. But yeah, no, those 2 guys would be the ideal dream if the Rangers are gonna preserve their cap space, trade Panarin, and then hold back until the 2026 offseason. Those are the 2 guys to get because those are the 2 really true game changers and X factors that would help you win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah. And even if again it's one of those wingers too, like Kaprizov would be sick. Kempe would be pretty sick as well. As a winger. Tuck even. I mean, Tuck will be 28 at the time. So they're Jack Harlow if those guys hit the market. Thank you for the $5, Ken. Appreciate that. Thanks for the stream. Let's hope for a successful deadline. If you mean stream, yes. Which again, I want to remind everyone. I'm just using it as that to segue, but I will be live. Which, by the way, Matt, I was going to ask you off air, but I'll ask you on air. I'm going to start at 9 o'clock or 8:45. You good for that on Friday?
Yeah, I should be good.
All
I
right.
should be
So
good. I just got to get some breakfast.
all right. So we're gonna.
I'll probably end up door dashing it or Uber Eats it, but
Yeah, just eat a lot of eating on
a
stream
lot
that day. We'll see Mark eat pizza with a fork that day. I think now after today, I gotta get Chick-fil-A on Friday
to
just
rub
to
it in his face.
yeah with
Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A
sauce.
sauce. Mark's kryptonite there, but
If you know, you
um,
know.
we will be live with Big Apple Hockey. So we're gonna start at 9 o'clock here, run until about 12, and then we're gonna go live with them, and that'll be helpful because we probably are gonna be. It's gonna be a lot of dead air otherwise. So the more people, the better. So we'll have Mark, Philk, and Anthony all on.
We can bully Mark the whole time since everyone enjoys doing that.
Yes, we could do that. I don't know if we're gonna have any layups there,
Yeah,
unfortunately, but
I
the
think
Blake Griffin jersey will still be out and ready.
I think you have to wear the Blake Griffin jersey. I think you have to do it. I think it's appropriate.
I'm gonna put it in the background at least. I'll
Okay,
put it
yeah.
on that. I'll put it on the chair behind me over
Okay,
there.
yeah, that works.
see. I just don't see McDavid or Eichel hitting the market. Those guys will be extended in the summer. It could happen. And I'm not saying it's a guarantee that both of those guys hit the market, but I also think it would be kind of foolish for one of those two guys at least to not hit the market, because I know the NHL is different than the MLB with the cap, obviously, but you just saw the way that Juan Soto tested the market, and no one thought he would get that much money. I think that Eichel and McDavid would be stupid to not test the market and see and let these teams get in bidding wars to see. I think I will say this. I think Eichel's more unlikely than McDavid. I know that might be unpopular of an opinion. I think that though. I think that, and the only reason I think that is just because of the fact that Eichel's won a cup in Vegas. Like, I have nothing to back up that's true or anything. I'm just simply thinking that I think Eichel is more likely to stay in Vegas. I think he's happy there. Where with McDavid, it's like if Edmonton does not win within these next 2 years, then I think one, that hurts their chances, and two, I think that either way, again, he would be stupid to not try testing the market if he wants the most money. If he's happy in Edmonton, then fine, but he's gonna lose out on potentially getting the bag, because I think that if he tested the market, it's gonna be ridiculous the contract he ends up getting.
Yeah, I've always felt that way with the point that if McDavid wins a cup, if McDavid wins a cup with the Oilers in these last 2 years that he's on the team, I think he stays. But if he doesn't, I think that only increases his chance of testing the market, because one, teams will be, especially with the cap going up, teams will be lining up to get Connor McDavid because he's just that good of a talent that whenever a guy of that level hits the market, you go out and you give him the most money because he's just that good. But it's like also with the fact that if he really likes Edmonton, and listen, Edmonton is still going to give him a nice paycheck at the end of the day. Same thing they did with Draisaitl. Like if Draisaitl hit the market again, teams would have lined up to go get him. But he liked Edmonton. He resigned, still got a nice payday. But yeah, I do kind of agree with the fact that, like you said, that I think Eichel is going to be the guy that most likely resigns and just signs an extension that hits the market, just because he's already won a cup with Vegas. He's been there for a while now. He's comfortable. He knows the culture there. But I also wouldn't be surprised if both hit the market. Just because maybe Eichel feels that since I already won here, now it's time for me to go get a big time payday to test the market. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I just think that, again, it would be dumb, in my opinion, for him to not test the market if he's trying to get the most money. I think we just got the first. Yeah, Frank's starting to tweet.
Oh, here comes the rampage.
He's tweeting about Justin Dowling right now.
His favorite. That's his favorite, especially since Nosek is not with them anymore. He got replaced as the punching bag. Let's see. Raymond. Rangers got Messi and Gretzky, so you never know. I mean, that was also a different time though. Like there was no salary cap back then, so you could pay guys whatever they wanted as long as you felt comfortable with paying that, which you saw teams like Detroit take advantage of that, and they built, I mean, that 97-98 Detroit team, or Detroit even in the 90s specifically. I mean, that team was just ridiculous.
Could you imagine, if there was no salary cap, how much McDavid would get?
Oh,
Then he would definitely hit the market. Him and Eichel both would actually hit the market if there was no
I think
salary cap.
if there was no salary cap, everybody hit the market.
True, but I just mean, like, especially those
No,
two
I know,
guys would,
yeah.
like, definitely hit the market. But maybe not, because it could be, I mean, we've seen, like, teams that just are able to keep everyone, the Dodgers.
Yeah, I don't know. I've always stayed the fact that I think I think the hard cap is just I think NHL needs to move away from the hard cap, and I
They
get it.
do.
I get it. They brung it in. It worked. It was a good idea in the first place. But I think we've just gotten to a point now where it's stale and it's outdated. I think there's multiple ways where you can fix this. I've been always a proponent where I think the NHL should just implement a luxury tax like the MLB, where if you're a team and you want to spend more money than the hard cap is, then yeah, you can go over it, but you just have to pay a luxury tax. And you would see like a team, especially like the Rangers, like because that's the thing with the Rangers. The Rangers and Dolan have never been stingy about spending money. Like if Dolan feels that there's a player out there that would help the team, he will go out there and go spend the money to make sure that guy comes in. He will do that's never been the problem with the Rangers. It's just how they handle the hard cap specifically with in terms of extensions and stuff. Because listen, if there was no hard cap and if there was a what's it called? A luxury tax in place, then I wouldn't have had a problem with the Igor extension because I'm like, cool, as long as you're comfortable paying that money and it doesn't hamper you from signing other bigger free agents in the future, then listen, I'm cool with it. But
Yeah,
because there's a hard cap in place right now, I'm like, that's not smart in terms of how you allocate your salary cap. Or the other way, you could do this, and I know Statboy Steven has brought this up many times. In terms of like let's say like you draft the guy and
I was about to bring this up.
he comes up and he produces and then it's time for him to get his payday. I think you should get a disc like you should still like you don't
You
get
have
a
to
discount in
physically
terms of
hand
how you
them the
pay him
money, but on the cap, it's
on the
less
cap
money.
hit towards like you would get a discount because it's a player that you've drafted and developed. I think that's a way which would help because then if you look at even if it's like 25%, right? Again, like I brought up with the Igor extension, $11.5 million is a lot, but if there was a 25% discount on that on the cap hit, then that contract would look a lot better than it is currently right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was gonna bring that up. That the discount thing, but this is also the other point that I was gonna bring up that
Yeah.
like there needs to be a way to neutralize these non-tax state teams because I'm tired of hearing, well, if we do a soft cap, then it's unfair because all the big market teams are going to get everyone. Is it so it's okay that the teams that play in non-state income tax or non I can't figure I can't word this right. In states with no income tax, it's fair that these guys are getting every single player. It's like it just contradicts each point. But yeah, I think that they need to do similar to like even what the NBA does, where there's like different tax levels. I mean, I know the MLB has done it, but you have the first apron and the second apron where the penalties get harsher, but they need to go to some other system because this is not it and keep the cap floor. And if teams don't want to spend, then blame the billionaires that aren't fucking spending money. Like I'm tired of hearing, "Oh, but it's unfair." Well, again, your
Then
team needs
don't own a
don't buy a
professional
team.
sports franchise.
Yeah, don't buy a team.
Yeah, it's just it's dumb. Because again, you bring up the point of like, you see teams like they win cups and then they lose their guys to free agency. I mean, like teams like that are really good at developing talent, drafting guys, developing talent, and then just losing the free agency because they can't afford them. It's like it's so dumb. Why are you being penalized for losing your own guys just because you're really good at developing them? And they
Yeah,
explode, and then it's time for your payday. Just it makes absolutely no sense.
yeah. Nick's been saying that too. That you get punished for accruing assets in this league. Like it's just so stupid. And this point too, the big market teams are the ones carrying the league. So hide the money, all those poor people around. I don't know what to tell you because it's just stupid. It's just so stupid. But yeah, like the attitude that we would have right now about this team would be so different right now if there was if there was a soft cap or a luxury tax system. Because I don't think anyone would give a shit about Fox right now making 9.5. We wouldn't care about Igor making 11.5 right now. We wouldn't even care as much about the Lafreniere extension right now and worried about it hampering the team. Like it's just so dumb. It's so stupid. Yeah, we touched on this one, Don. I just put money on Columbus and the Rangers to make the playoffs after that. I put a lot of money on both of them, so at least one of them better make it. If not, that's not going to be great because I put 50 on both of them.
Let's just hope though that the trades one more day, just hold out. Nothing happens tomorrow, and just leave everything for Friday. That's all I'm asking.
Tom on AB, sadly.
Give us content for Friday. We don't want to be on Big Apple hockey and then all of a sudden have to start talking about eating pizza with forks. We wanna talk about some trades.
Yeah, it's just like I hate how this is happening every year now. Like all the big trades are happening before the trade deadline. Although I will say that this is the first time in a bit that there's no like really early trades because some lately there's been trades in like January, even like the end of January that have happened. There's really not been any of those like trades outside of Rantanen, really.
And the JT Miller trade.
True, yeah, the Miller trade was early. Yeah,
That
I
was in
take that back.
January.
You're right. Yeah, I take that back because I forgot the Miller trade was on. But it might not matter as much with Rantanen because he's probably going to get moved again. Which that's what I'm hoping that a Rantanen deal happens on Friday. And I also said it in Big Apple Hockey's chat today. I I think if a team's going to make a surprise move at the deadline, it could be the Rangers. Like if they move Kreider or Miller, that could be a surprise of the deadline. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, Florida still has. I know they acquired Vanacek today, but they still got $4.1 million in cap space left, so they can certainly make a nice little addition to their team. So, other than that, I mean, there's no team really out there that's a contender that really has like. I mean, Columbus has $17 million in cap space, but I don't see them making a huge move. Just considering that good team, nice story this year, but yeah, I don't think it'd
Look
be
at their
smart.
deadline cap space though.
Oh yeah, 89 million.
89 million. Calgary has 84 million. Oh my god.
Oh, no, actually, oh yeah, because I was looking at current. Yeah, Florida is $8.7 million in cap space at the deadline, so yeah, they could certainly make a big move if they have to.
Toronto only has
Mm.
800K. Ooh. They got to
Win-
move Yarncroke if they can.
Winnipeg, yeah, Winnipeg's again another team that's going to make another big addition.
Toronto's got to move Reeves and Yarncroke to make a move. I'm sorry, but those guys have to go. A fun trade that would be a surprise move on Friday. I don't think it's going to happen, but just because he's in a similar spot with as Rantanen, it would be sick if we got a Mitch Marner trade on Friday. I don't think we will,
Yeah,
but it would be fucking cool if we got a Mitch Marner trade on Friday.
yeah, that would be great just for content wise, but
That's not going to
yeah, it's
happen.
not going to happen.
New Jersey though just became interesting now at the trade deadline because with Hughes going on LTIR, I mean, they wouldn't even need any retention at all on Rantanen now if they were to acquire him, if they go in that direction. Um,
Although I will say, if Marner were to hypothetically get traded, that would be some really good Steve Dangle content that I would have to check out.
that would. Trying to look. I mean, Minnesota has 6.7. That could be interesting to see what happens there. Tampa's gonna have 4.6 still at the deadline, so it's like, and they could still move Perbix, so
Yeah,
they could
Tampa's
get
gonna be.
they could get help. Vegas is gonna have 4.2 million. You know they're gonna make a move.
I mean, I was gonna say though, like, but I just like in terms of asset wise with Tampa, like, because I know they still need help on their blue line. If they were able to get a guy like Bowen Byram, then that
That's what
really,
I was thinking, but they don't. I don't think they have the assets.
yeah, but that's what I was just saying. I don't think they have the assets to go do that because Buffalo's gonna want a solid return on Byram.
Yeah, and they want more roster players right now than anything, and it's like they just don't have what it takes.
Because
I
at
think
that
they're
point, because I was saying it because at that point, like if they were to get Bowen Byram, then you're looking at the defensive core with Hedman, Moser, McDonough, Chernak, Byram, Radish. That's a really good decor right there. And then on top of the moves they just made to bring in Bjorkstrand or Gourde, then at that point I would say like a Florida Tampa Bay series that would be really entertaining to watch.
yeah, I think they're gonna be more in the market for like a Grizzly type or like a Brian Dumoulin type guy. I think they're gonna target someone that's gonna fit more on their bottom pair. I mean, they could bring Ian Cole back too, which wouldn't surprise me because and it wouldn't surprise me if they just brought Ian Cole and David Savard back. Just run it back, run it back with some of those guys. That's what Tampa does sometimes.
They're gonna go get the alpha dog Barkley Goodrow back, put him over the top.
Yeah, they're gonna bring Goudreau back, and then they're gonna somehow get Coleman back. All of New Jersey's. I disagree with this. Nason's been good for them.
Mm.
The biggest offseason fuck up for them was Palat. Palat, and I think everyone agreed that that contract wasn't going to age well too. Most people, or at least
Yeah.
most of us, because we saw how Goudreau and Coleman rebounded a bit, but we saw how those two contracts went after, and then Kaloran too hasn't been the same since leaving Tampa. Everyone
Yeah,
had a feeling everyone said Palat's contract was an overpay. I didn't think it was going to be this bad though. I'll say that.
yeah. The Palat one I didn't think would be this bad. The Killorn one, right from when Anaheim signed that deal, I was like, yeah, that's not gonna age well at all. But the Palat one was, I mean, the only benefit to it is that it was only a 5-year deal, so it's not like they really like locked them up to 7 years. They only have 2 more years left at $6 million. So I mean, like the 2 years extra still sucks, but at least it's not like 3 or 4 years because at that point you're like, shit.
Yeah, imagine Anaheim actually like allocated their cap well because they gave Ryan Strome a stupid contract. They gave Kaloran that horrible contract, and they're actually like a fringe playoff team. Imagine they actually use that cap
Yeah,
because that's over $10 million in
yeah.
cap right there.
And they willingly took on Jacob Truba's money.
That too. Like, imagine they actually use that cap the right way. They'd probably be a playoff team right now if they actually spent it on good players. But that Kaloran one, oh my god, he's
Yeah.
35 years old and he still has 2 years after this on that deal. I mean, they'll probably buy him out that last year if the buyout helps them at all, but that's rough.
Yeah, 'cause I remember too that offseason when they signed it. I'm like, oof, that is not gonna age well at all.
No, that was such a stupid deal. And yeah, I mean, Pesci hasn't been good. Meyer was a sign and trade, but yeah, Meyer, I definitely
Yeah,
was wrong about him. I thought that he was going to be a great ad for them. No, Timo Meyer has not been nearly as advertised. And then Brett Pesci. I mean, Brett Pesci's contract, I think most people said wasn't going to be good too. Like, I didn't like Carolina fans hated Pesci, and like, no offense to Carolina fans, but they're not nearly as over the top as most fan bases are. But like when they hate a player, that should say something. And they hated Brett Pesci, so that contract wasn't going to be good. I thought Meyer though would be good. That one I definitely thought. Nason though has been their best offseason ad.
Who would have thought the Nation would have been good? Who would have thought? But I just took a look at Killorn's numbers, like 21, 22 and 82 games, 59 points, 22,
Oof.
23, 80, 64 points in 82 games, and then last year, 36 points in 63 games, 25 points in 60 games. That point drop off, but I mean, that's what happens when. Listen, Killorn was a very good player for them, but it was clear that he was a product of his line mates.
Yeah, that's him and Palat both. I mean, like we said, we thought Palat would be better, but man. And then even like the Devils have also had trouble with just some of their young players, like Mercer. You
Hasn't
thought that maybe he was gonna be like a really, really good top six forward, but he has not been the same since that 2022-23 season. And then Luke Hughes has been very, very up and down. Nemec has been just flat out garbage. Like there's no way around it for him. Dougie Hamilton, even he started to he hasn't looked as great lately, and I know he got hurt too. So I saw
yeah,
someone ask in the chat if there's any news where Smith might be dealt to. No, outside of every Canadian media outlet saying, well, I think he'd be good with the Leafs or the Oilers, even though there was clearly a report that he's most likely not going to Canada because he has an 8-team no trade list. And I'd imagine all of Canada plus like San Jose or Columbus is on that list. So
I I I mean, look, considering it where all the guys, if you look at who the Rangers traded this year so far, everyone's been traded out west. So I'd
if
be
we're
more
putting the
betting on
pieces
the
together,
I'd be more betting on the fact that he's probably going somewhere out west. And even with the fact that like the Rangers right now, like they're a fringe playoff team right now, and they could make it, especially with Hughes going to LTIR and the Devils possibly falling out of the playoffs. I don't think Drury would be looking at, let me trade him to an Eastern Conference team that I might be competing with to then, put another, even though Riley Smith hasn't been great this year, but let me not help a team that I'm competing with on trying to make the playoffs this year. So most likely he's gonna go out west somewhere.
and honestly, if he's going to a team in the East, that might be better because that means they're a team's overpaying because
Yeah.
I feel like a team in the East would have to pay up more. And I've been saying this for weeks that I think he's going to go back to Vegas. I just, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could just see that considering the fact that he doesn't want to go to Canada. He would fit in Edmonton well, but doesn't want to go there. The only other place, maybe LA or Minnesota, like those teams maybe could add him. But I think Minnesota needs more of a center right now. LA, they could add him, but I think they need more of a top six forward right now. I think Riley Smith would be more of a pivot if they don't land anyone. And you know what? I will say this, even though the Rangers are going to lose the Riley Smith trade by default because they're going to get less than what they gave up to get him. I will say at least Chris Drury's standing his ground right now and creating a bidding war for Riley Smith because he could have took a deal like what Gus Nyquist just got and called it a day. I think he's standing his ground right now and waiting to get the best possible return, which I applaud him for that, but I also don't applaud him entirely because you gave up a second and a fifth for him in the offseason when there was a free agent market to utilize.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I could see Vegas going back from him, especially because they'll have $4.2 million in cap space available, so they don't have to the Rangers don't have to retain. I mean, maybe they couldn't if Vegas would be willing to offer you another draft pick at that point. And honestly, there's no harm right now in probably in retaining salary on Riley Smith, even though Pittsburgh's already retaining a chunk of his salary. So again, you're not taking on a huge amount, but if Vegas is one to give him another pick, if you're going to retain some, then yeah, retain because Probably right now, I would say straight up for Riley Smith, you probably could get a second round pick. Maybe you could get a fifth round pick if you retain, maybe a fourth round pick. I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah. And I've said the Panthers too, but I was just talking about teams out west. I think the Panthers also, and another team that he used to play for, but I think that they could be a team that pursues him. I could even see a team that's like a fringe team that wants to like conservative buy like Calgary maybe just going out and acquiring Riley Smith, which that could be the case. Who knows though? Who knows? I know people have said Dallas too, but I can't see Dallas. I think Dallas needs more help on the blue line, if anything.
Yeah.
Their top nine's also kind of loaded right now. From a
Yeah.
content standpoint and from a fan standpoint, I would love this. I
JJ
would love
Peterka.
if Paterka gets moved on Friday. I would love it even more if it's to the Rangers.
Yeah, Turk is a beast. I've wanted him for a couple years now.
And Buffalo is so freaking stacked. Like in terms of what they could trade. It's like I don't understand how this team is as bad as they are. They're stacked
Oh,
in terms of what they could trade though. Like they could trade Byram, McLeod, Talk, Paterka. They are stacked with that, with the assets that they could get. But I don't get how they're this bad. I really just don't. Looking at this team on paper,
that franchise can't get anything right. I feel so bad for that fan base.
I do too. And then they just extended Jordan Greenway for $4 million a year. Like, what are you doing? But you want to trade Paterka?
And Ryan McLeod.
Like, come on. Such a stupid frame. Like, that's the one team I could, if anyone decides to switch teams, like if you're a fan of the Sabres, you have permission to switch teams. Like, I think that's very
Yeah.
fair and valid to let Sabres fans switch teams and bandwagon to a different team. That's the one team I could say. The only other team is maybe, sorry, Matt, the New York Jets. It's like those two teams. If you want to switch, you're more than welcome to. I won't call you a bandwagon. I will give you permission because those two teams are run like a joke.
And one more team. I'll give you the Miami Marlins. If you want to switch from being a Marlins fan, I could get that too. Because
Yeah.
every time you build up a seemingly looking good core that could do something, they immediately tear it down.
Even right now, like Sandy's building his way back up and they're probably going to
He's
trade him
gonna
at
get
the
traded.
deadline.
He's gonna get traded. Sandy Alcantara and Edward Cabrera are out the door as soon as possible.
Yeah, they're too good and we're going to have to pay them so they're out. Browns fans also have an excuse. That's very true.
Listen. With me and the Jets, I'm like, I've had this thing where, like, I'll watch the start of the season, but as soon as I see cracks, I can switch off right away. And I'm like, I don't care.
That's me with the Knicks right now. It's like I've not been as glued to the Knicks lately because it's like one, basketball is probably the sport that I care about the least, and two, like there's so many cracks with that team. Like I'll watch games if I'm able to, but I'm not going out of my way to watch them because I don't want to make it sound like I'm a bandwagon by being like, oh yeah, I'm only watching them when they're good. I'll watch them if I'm not doing anything, but I'm not clear my schedule right now to watch the Knicks because they have a lot of cracks in the foundation. Really, the Rangers are the only team I clear my schedule for because the Mets there's 162, so it's like impossible to watch every single game. But I try.
I
What are you saying?
No, I was gonna say I think the Mets now are getting to a point where it might have to be time to start clearing the schedule for all 162.
I'm gonna try it, but it's 162.
I
Like
know
it's
it's
so
hard,
tough.
and especially now with like I know it's like it's baseball talk, but I got to bring up this point with like because like the SNY app and stuff, how like they're switching over to MLB TV, and now you got to freaking pay MLB TV to watch the Mets on SNY. Like if you're not home and you got to watch on your computer or phone, it's like fucking they just monopolize all that shit and make you pay so much money. It's dumb.
Yep. I'm not surprised though.
But
Um,
knowing me, I'll be a sucker and pay.
yeah, I already pay for MLB TV because I just like watching random games to begin with. So it's like I might as well get the package deal at this point. Let's see. I saw a report earlier on Puck Empire on Instagram that the Rangers are in on Jared McCann. Yes, I think that was David Pagnotta that said that, but one, after last year's deadline, I don't fully trust David Pagnotta. Two, if that is true, great. He would be a really good 3C. I don't know what they would give up to get him, but I would be very happy with that ad. The Rangers are going to have roughly 50 million in cap space. They should at least consider being a third party broker for picks. Yeah, 100%. Especially if there's a world where they don't have to retain on Smith, which there's a chance they have to do, which that's why, because I've seen people being like, why haven't they third party brokered, like the Gourde deal just now or anything? I think they want to wait and see if they need these retention slots before doing it. Um, do we think that Paterka first, Emery, Sikoravac, and yeah, no, that does not get it done at all. No
No,
way.
not
Not
enough
even
at all.
close. Not even close, to be honest with you. I think that if the Rangers are making that trade, they're gonna have to give up like Miller, Schneider, or Laugh as the headline piece of the deal, like one of those three, and then you surround it with prospects and picks.
Yeah, Buffalo's gonna want top forward ready players, and maybe on the prospect side too. Because I mean, it does depend though, because what they do get for Byram if they were to trade him. Because if they trade Byram, then they probably would be looking to get another Big Ten defensive prospect. But if they keep Byram and then they're moving out guys like McLeod or Paterka, they're gonna want forward guys to replace them. And I mean, like you said, like probably Lafreniere is gonna be one of those guys, but I don't know if they're going to trade Lafreniere. And then, if you look at the prospect wise, I don't think Brennan Othman's enough to do a trade like that for JJ Paterka. And the Rangers didn't want to give up, and even if this is true, but if the Rangers didn't want to give up Gabe Perreault for Jake Gensel last year, then I highly doubt Drury's going to want to give up Gabe Perreault for JJ Paterka.
The only difference I think there is that Paterka's gonna have term. That's the only, and he's younger, which could be the only counter to that. But yeah, I still don't think that. I guess it depends how much they view Perot's ceiling. Like if they view it similar to Paterka, then I mean, yeah, they'd probably move him. But I don't think it would be hard, honestly, for the Rangers to make this deal happen for Paterka. I'd love it, but this wouldn't be an easy deal. But I also don't know what the package Buffalo is looking for. I think that they would love Schneider though, because I've said it. I said it on Twitter this past week, and I got shit for it. But and I got into a lot of arguments and text group chats and everything about Schneider. I don't think that. I think this team's horniness for Braden Schneider is going to be a problem because I get it. He's a GM's wet dream. He's a physical right shot defenseman. He's got size and he does all those intangible things. I get all that, but you're not winning a Stanley Cup with one of Brain Schneider or Will Borgen being on your right side. You extended Will Borgen. Why is Brain Schneider here? Why is he still here? Because if you don't trust them, which I certainly don't, maybe this team does, which I don't agree with it, but why is he still here if he's going to be, you know, a third pair defenseman with Will Borgen here? That to me, it makes no sense to keep Schneider around then at that point. And if anything, I'd rather trade him to get an upgrade in the forward group or get an upgrade on the left side defense to play with Fox. And then you move Borgen down to the third pair and you get another right shot defenseman to play on the second pair. And we've seen that Schneider is like a hot commodity because Vancouver wanted him badly. Buffalo wanted him when the Rangers were talking about trading for Jack Eichel. So it's like clearly there's value. and Braden Schneider. Why is he still here? I don't get it. I think they should move him. I got into an argument because I called him a glorified Jacob Trouba, but I think he's Jacob Trouba before Trouba became a bad skater. I'm sorry, I think that's what he is. And the only difference is he's better at killing penalties. You could argue with a wall. I just don't view Brain Schneider highly. I view him, the comparable that I made, I view him as the David Peterson of the New York Rangers. The ladies love him. He's a tall guy. He has good baseline numbers, but when you look at the in-depth stuff, he's not as good as you think. He's just not.
Yeah, the one thing that really turns me off from David Peterson, I mean, not David Peterson. Well, there's a couple things too there with David
Yeah,
Peterson,
the blue circles on his Savant page.
yeah, but no, with Braden Schneider, the thing that I really don't like, and I've started to see it creep into his game, especially this year, is puck retrievals and the fact that he can't deal with pressure of a forecheck. He really can. And again, we saw the biggest problem with this team last year when they played the Florida Panthers is the puck movement and the puck breakouts out of the zone and how our defensemen couldn't deal with Florida's forecheck and pressure. And I've noticed that a lot with Braden Schneider that whenever he comes back to retrieve the puck, and right when there's an opposing forechecker on him, he panics and he loses the puck. And listen, I get it. He's a big physical guy. I like him in that sense. He makes some good defensive plays, but I think in terms of going forward, and we've seen the recipe on how to win cups, I don't think you can have a defenseman like that on your second pair making big time money. And pretty soon he's going to be up for a contract. And again, it's the same argument with Keandre Miller. Do you want to give a guy like Braden Schneider like that more, a lot of years and big time money? With those qualities, I don't think you do.
Yeah, I just don't get the obsession at all. And the other thing too is like he is terrible at getting the puck into the offensive zone. Like I feel like he's constantly coughing the puck up in the neutral zone. I don't see what people love about Braden Schneider. I just don't like. Again, he kills penalties. He's okay, but he plays third pair mids. He's a third pair defenseman. He's a third pair defenseman. Like that's all he is. And I I got into an argument with someone in a group chat over text who was like, "Well, he's 23 years old. Are you really doubting the fact that he could get better?" I'm like, "Yeah, with the New York Rangers, yes, I am doubting that he could get better. And he's not going to get better being buried on the third pair, and his metrics are bad on a third pair. Why would you give him extended minutes when that's only going to make things worse?"
Man, no, this team already has way too many third pair quality level defensemen already, and you don't want to elevate those guys to the higher pairings, second, first, and then pay them to play on that pairing. You already have Vakanainen, you got Schneider, you just locked up Will Borgen. Again, I don't like that contract extension whatsoever. I think you could have got a really good return at this trade deadline, but what's done is done now. You got Calvin DeHaan. Yeah, Keandre Miller. You have to see what happens with him. Like we were saying, the Rangers have a lot of depth defensively, but it's not great depth.
Yeah, that's the issue there. By the way, there's a report from Stefan Rosser that the Islanders are actively trying to sign Brock Nelson to an extension. Mistake, but
I don't agree with that.
whatever. Not my problem.
Not, not. I don't have a problem with him extending. Well, I have a problem with him extending, but I don't have a problem wanting him back. I think what the Islanders should have done and what Lamoriello should do is get whatever you can from him in return. And if there really is true mutual interest in, Brock Nelson wanting to go back to the Islanders and Lou Lamoriello wanting him back on the team, like I said, trade him, get whatever assets, and then re-sign in the offseason. Do what like the Yankees did in 2016 with Aroldis Chapman. It makes sense. Like the Islanders are not a they're not a good team. I know they just beat the Winnipeg Jets last night, but the Islanders are not a good team. And even if they were to sneak into the playoffs, they're not getting past the first round.
They're not
So
sneaking into the playoffs
yeah,
either way. I mean, looking at the standings right now, they would have had to win one of these games against the Rangers, and that would have only put them in a chance because they would be at 65 points right now. The Rangers would be at 64. I mean, they'd be ahead of them and they'd be a couple points out. Right now, it's just like they're at 63. There's Boston's ahead of them, Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit, and I think Ottawa and Detroit especially are better than them. So it's like I don't get it. But I'm gonna answer a few more of these questions and then we'll wrap up the stream here. If Laugh was a third round pick, do we think this his trade value would be the same? I feel his whole value is based on potential, but he's just regressing. Yes. Yeah. There's no doubt about it that it's all because of the fact that he was a first overall pick. Yeah. GMs see that label and they get the lotion ready in their offices. Like that's all it is. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
no, not really. I agree with you.
let's rephrase it. Buffalo would Buffalo do a first Schneider Sikora for Paterka? No,
No.
they'd have to give up more still. All right, we're gonna wrap up the stream here. So unless there's a trade tomorrow, I'll be live for the post game, and then outside of that, I will be live, of course, if any trades break, and hopefully not. I would love if Thursday I don't have to worry about anything. So then Friday we get all of the big trades. But we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live here. And I'll see you guys in the post game tonight.